Hi everybody, today we're going to be doing an inventory system. I've already created a script called Inventory Manager, and I've added it, I'll let it compile, I've added it to my scripts folder inside of an inventory subfolder, so assets, scripts, inventory, and I've created an inventory manager. Inside of that inventory manager, there is a representation of what is an inventory item. So I made a class within this class called inventory item. I could also have this on the outside because it is not a mono behavior. You can't have two mono behaviors in the same spot, but I can have just generic classes that help represent things like an inventory manager is going to manage inventory items. So I'm going to plop it right here. And if it helps you, if it makes more sense, you could also create a different script here called inventory item. I might even do that. Inventory item. Open this guy up. Take away its mono behavior because it's not like an object in the game. It's just a generic setup for what an inventory item is. I don't need to be importing anything until I realize if I do or not. And represent it like this. So it looks like I do need to be using, I think that's system.collections or something. System.collections.generic. Okay, so I need that. I'll go back to my inventory manager and I know that I don't need that anymore. So now they're in separate files. Either way works. You'll have the reference code for your purposes. But an inventory manager manages a set of inventory items. How do you define that set or a collection of items can be done in many ways. If you need to be able to find them really quickly based on like a name, you could use a dictionary. If you know exactly how many items you'll have at all times, you use an array. An array is a collection of a set amount of numbers. If you're always going to have a maximum of 30 items, then you create that one array of 30 items and you fill it in over time, but there's always 30 and you just got to make sure when it's when those things are null or when they are actually values and that type of thing. Maybe like a belt of items. You would always know, oh, I can have up to 12 slots, so always just have 12 empty slots in an array. Or you have a list. A list is dynamic. It can be any size at any time. Where an array is a collection of items that you find by saying, I want number 3 item. I want to go to the third element, and I want that one. A list is based on the objects themselves. So you don't say, I want to find the third thing in the list. You say, I want to find the batarang. Boom, and you go to the batarang. So a list is not number-based like the array. An array is what you call ordered. Every item, no matter when you request a particular element, like the third item, it'll always be the same. It's ordered. A list is not necessarily ordered because it's dynamic. You can say add an object, remove an object. And that's why I think it might be useful for an inventory because I don't know how big my inventory is going to be. So over time, I'm just going to add items to it and I'm going to take items from it. And that's why I used a list. There are so many valid approaches. If you find a different one, feel free to use it. I'm using a list and that list has items in it. I can either add an item or I can remove an item. I made it return Boolean values with these methods so that if something went wrong, I could just return false. If I wasn't able to add it, maybe I'm at my max limit. Maybe I'm an inventory that has integer maximum. Like I can only have 10 items or something like that. I could return false if I've hit that point. And when I remove an item, I can remove it instead of having to know where the item is in my list, like, oh, delete the third item. If I'm receiving a specific item to remove, then I can just say remove that item. Remove this inventory item from the list. I don't need to figure out what number it is, remove it, because it's not an ordered list or an array. It's an unordered list that I can find things by objects. I know this is a weird concept, but knowing the different types of collections at your disposal in Unity is super duper useful. Another one that is useful I've included in inventory item. So every inventory item is going to have some type of name, and then it's going to have a series of stats. A dictionary is how I've chosen to represent those stats, because you could have a dictionary, just like if I don't have I'm not going to pull up a dictionary, but a dictionary is always a collection of keys that have values. In this case, the key is a string, so some type of text, and the value is an integer, some type of number. So, for example, I could say strength is 5, or the amount is 1, or whatever else you want to measure. The MP is 300. Whatever it is you want, a dictionary will be flexible enough to let you have custom stats for whatever item setup you have, because each person in this group or in this class is making a different thing, which may still have an inventory, but the inventory will be of different values. So I think a dictionary will be useful in this case. Okay, so we have our inventory manager, and our manager manages a list of inventory items. We have add item and remove item. And on start, public, or I think I just say start, and I can just hit enter and it'll screw up making it. There it is, private void start. I'll just have it, I'll have it make up a few inventory items just for show, right? So I'm gonna say inventory item I equals new inventory item I dot, I'm just making one up, item name equals Sword of Damocles. I feel like that's an actual thing, right? A Damocles. Is an ancient moral parable popularized by the Roman philosopher Cicero in his 45 BC book Tusculan Disputations. Okay, so I dot item stats dot add. So I'm going to add some dictionary items to its stats, and it's going to be let me just see the format of the add. I need a key and a value. So one of my keys is going to be discovery or age, and the age is going to be 45 BC, so it's 2020. It's going to be 2065 years old. So that's whatever it is. That's one item I'm adding. I'll add another thing. I'll add the stats. Its strength is 300. You can make the stats whatever you want. It don't matter. It don't matter. It's a dictionary. So depending on the game you're making, you're going to need different stats for your items, and this is just flexible enough to support whatever it is you need and however it is you need to access it. Okay, so I've made my inventory item, and I'm going to add item. That's this method. I'm just doing this on start for fun. I. That's the name of my variable. Doing this on awake just to do it. And I'm going to have a little debug log here, debug.log. I have added the item, colon, plus new item dot name, dot item name. So inventory item, new item is what's getting passed in right here. I'm adding this item to it. It adds it to my list, and I have added the item, new item.name. I'll even say, oh, another thing that's good to know. Something you could reference is you could have texture ID. Like say you have a big list of textures. Now you know, oh, my texture ID is going to be texture ID 1. The other option you have is, of course, you could have a public texture 2D item texture, and then it's going to want me to import using Unity Engine so it knows what that is. You have lots of different ways you could do this. The dictionary could store that texture, or I could have i.texture equals new texture 2D. And then we define it somewhere to say what it is. But actually, it looks like it doesn't even let me do that, so I'll just say null. To say, you're an empty texture for now. So I'm adding that whole thing to it. And if I have a texture, that means I could use it in my inventory list, something like that. And so now we have inventory list.add this object. It's going to say I have that object, and then I'm also going to debug.log. I'm having a brain fart here. I want to know how many items are in my list. Inventory count, colon, inventory list dot count or dot length dot count. And I believe it's not a method. I believe I just do that. Awesome. So now it's going to say, whenever it adds something to my list, it'll say, I have the item, whatever I named it, Sword of Damocles. Boom. And I'm going to have a new item in my inventory. And just to prove that it works, I'm going to turn this into update so that I can say if input.getKey down spacebar, key code dot spacebar. Whenever I hit spacebar, it'll add this item to the list. Boom. That's why I've made it update instead of awake, so that I can do it repeatedly, so I can see this debug log be redone. All right. I'm going to hit clear. I forgot to add this item to this object to the scene. I'm going to not only have a game manager, I'll have a empty object. I'm going to call it inventory manager. I'm going to add that script that I created, inventory manager. Boom. Would you have this in the start scene where you just have this menu? Probably not. You probably have it in the play scene. Let's go to console. Now when I press play and I hit spacebar, oop, object not reference to an object, line 16. Oh, whoopsie boopsie. An inventory item, I need to say dictionary, when you're created, be an empty dictionary, an empty thing of keys. My bad. Because otherwise I can't set something that doesn't exist. Boom. Sword of Damocles in 1. I hit spacebar, and if I hit spacebar again, it should still say I added the Sword of Damocles, but now it should say 2 because I've added it twice. Boom. So now it says count 2. This could be caused by hitting an object. So not only will I set it up so that I have the Sword of Damocles, when I hit spacebar, it'll add it. I'm also going to make myself a little game object inside of my scene. Where are you at? Where are you at? Scenes. And I think I am basing off of mobile UI. Nope. Basic movement. Nope. I didn't do a sample scene, did I? No. Let me check my build settings here. It is Lab 2 mobile UI. I guess I just missed it. If I hit play. Oh, there's my cube. Okay, I don't know why I didn't see it. There's my cube. He's doing his thing. But what happens if the cube could collect something? You could collect something in many ways. By touching it and it like goes into your inventory, or maybe through gameplay after you've won a level, you can just run the code to add something to your inventory. In both situations, it's totally fine, totally easy. I'm just going to add it here. So next to my cube, I'm just going to make ourselves a create empty. I'll call it item. I'll call it pickup underscore item. And this item could be a billion different things. It's going to be a prefab because maybe there's many different kinds of items you could pick up. And I'm going to give ourselves a new script inside of inventory. Inside of gameplay, it's going to be a pickup item. So create folder pickup. And maybe there's variations of this pickup item. For now, just like how there's variations of the UI panels, how there's like the start panel and the main panel, and they both are types of UI panel. There could be many types of a pickup object. Maybe one explodes when you pick it up, and the other one does something else. I don't know. I'm gonna call it pickup behavior. That sounds good. I'm thinking. Or I could just call it pickup. Yeah, pickup behavior. I like that. Boom. Pickup behavior. I'm going to add it to my pickup items prefab. So I'm just going to go into here. Boom. I'm editing inside of the prefab here. I don't know why I still see the cube in this situation. I guess that's just how Unity works now, is it doesn't like go to its own thing. I want my pickup item to have I'll make it a sphere. Boom. Let's go back to the scene and put it off to the side. Boom. Yeah, that's cool. So now if I press play, it should be to the side. I'm gonna hit okay, yep, so I can walk right up to it. And I could pick it up if I wanted. My cube, let's check how my player is set up. Player cube root is a box collider. It is not a trigger. The sphere is also not a trigger. A trigger is a collider that when you hit it, it doesn't push back. It's just a region of space that can be passed through. I think I do want my pickup items to be a trigger. So I'm going to say, boom, make it a trigger. And I actually meant to do that inside the prefab. So let me click on the top element and apply all, because I should have been changing that in the prefab directly. Okay, so pickup behavior. I don't need a start or an update. I do need a representation of what, when I'm picked up, what is my inventory item value that I should be adding. So pickup inventory item, my item. Sure. And I need, I'm just thinking. I need an on trigger enter, void on trigger enter. Boom. So on trigger enter, it will be when somebody enters my trigger zone, that thing is the other. So when the player enters me, I'll say if other dot tag equals player, then I'll do something. And a tag can be done like this. So I go to my player, I'll set this to the tag to player, but I think I'd rather do it, I'll do it here, player. And it should have asked me if I wanted to do all the children, but it looks like it didn't. I'm not sure why. Player. Player. I think if I shift select, I could do it as well, but whatever. The player is a player, the cube root is a player, and this little cube on the inside is a player. That makes sense because I am the player, and I can now say if this other thing that I hit is the player, then I should do something. Let's debug.log the player has hit me. And I don't believe I will see this yet when I run into it. But let's find out. I don't yet see it. Let me see if my item still adds. Oh, did I remove that code as well? I might have. Oh, I don't have the inventory manager in this scene. That's why. I'm dumb. Anyway, so I don't see that trigger enter yet, and that's because every trigger... let me make this a prefab while I'm at it. Boom. So now I can't ever accidentally mess it up because it's a prefab. The cube needs to have a rigid body on it for other things to detect that it was hit. So I'm going to add that rigid body, and because a rigid body is a physics simulation, I want to make sure that I don't use gravity and that all of my constraints are locked because I'm moving everything through code. I don't need it to have some type of like physics simulation. I just need to be able to detect collision events. So now when I press play and I walk up to it, I would have expected to get that event fired off, but maybe I am crazy. Untrigger enter. Oh, perhaps I'm crazy. Is it the other way around? Maybe I'm flipped around. Maybe? Oh. It might be because the sphere should be on, this collider should be on the parent, but I'm just going to do one more thing to make sure I'm not crazy. Let's see if I add a rigid body to the child, to this object here, and I'll freeze everything. I just want to see if this will do it. If it doesn't, then it means I need to have my collider one element up. Yes, that is why. So I'm going to take off the rigid body. I'm going to take off the sphere collider, not the mesh. I'm going to go to the parent object, which has the script on it that says on collision enter, or on trigger enter, and I'm going to add this sphere collider up here and say you're a trigger. And, you know, if you had a different sized object, then you would need to change the radius, but I don't, so it's all good. And boom, the player has hit me. And now that I know that that's the case, I'm going to go back to the player and just verify. If I don't have a rigid body, I don't expect it to work. And let's just see if I'm crazy. Yes, it does not work. And that makes sense because collision events can only happen if there's some physics at hand. And that's why somebody needs a rigid body. And in this case, it's the player. And so I'm going to say, okay, player, your cube, which also has the collider, you also are going to have a rigid body. You are not going to use gravity. And you are going to have all of your constraints position and rotation all frozen because I'm moving you through code. I am not moving you through physics. Though if you did a Flappy Bird type game, you might be using the physics engine. It depends on the what do you call it? On the tutorial that you follow. Okay, so now I know. Now I'm satisfied that my inventory item pickup knows when it's picked up. But I need to set up its item to be able to have values. So, because it's like a class and Unity doesn't know that it's supposed to be revealed, I need to tell it specifically, show me this field. And then I need to go to inventory item and specify, hey, system.serializable. That is different from serialized field. Serialized field is when I want to see it as a variable. System.serializable is I'm saying this class can be serialized. And I believe I have to do this for all the elements inside of it. And let's see what happens. I'm going to go back to my pickup item. My item has a name and a texture, but a dictionary is a special type of thing. But now I can say my name is cool ball. I don't know what my texture would be for when I'm collected, but I can't edit that list of stats, which could be useful. So let's think about how we can make these stats something that we can just edit into prefabs and make it easy. So one solution would be, if you knew exactly what values you needed, you would just have a list of like public float strength and public int. If you're doing a card game, you could say suit, and each integer like 1, 2, 3 would mean a certain suit. Whatever it may be, you could have represented it like that and it would just work. But I don't know what you want, so I want to just have a list of stats. Could be anything. So I want to figure out how to do this right. I think what I could do is public void set dictionary, set item stats in my inventory item. Somebody's going to tell me what my stats should be. And it's going to be based off of a set of keys and a set of values. So string array keys int array values. Somebody's going to send those along to me. Boom, boom. For each, actually I'm going to say for int I equals 0. This is how you loop through a set. I'm going to go through every one of my keys. I is less than keys.length I plus plus. This is how I go through all of my keys that have been passed along. I want to take an array of keys and an array of values and convert it to a dictionary so that it can be saved, and so that's a more efficient setup. So boom, I'm getting a list of things. And if you don't want to deal with this, you don't need to have item stats at all. I'm just saying that again. You know, you can do this however you want. You could have had public int strength, set that to serialized field, and then it would appear over here. Boom, and you could just edit it. This is for you programmer savvy people who are more interested. You don't have to do this if you're not. I want to be able to have any value I want, so I'm creating a way to convert things that I can serialize into like the Unity editor and editable section into a dictionary, which is just a faster way of having values. So string keys, int values for every one of my keys. I will also say item stats dot add. And what do I want to add? I want to add my key value at that location, comma, my values at that location. So that's saying for every one of my items in my array of keys, add to my item stats dictionary that string, so strength, and that value, like 100, I don't know. And I'll say if keys.length is not equal to values.length, then return. Don't try to add them, because they should be the same, or if they're not the same, then somebody did something wrong. Now I'm gonna pop back over to my I'll also have a different one called public void add item stat, and it'll just be a single element, string key int value, and it'll just do item stats dot add key comma value. That's it. So one will add many if I pass it along, the other will add just one key and one value. So let's go back to pickup behavior. A pickup behavior has an item, and we're also going to want public int array and a public string array keys, stat keys, and stat values. I'm just thinking, do I want to make this pretty already? I think I do. So instead of, I'll show you what this will look like. Boom. Then you would have a set of keys and a set of values, and I would say, okay, I want my first value to be bananas. How many bananas do I have? 5. 45 apparently. And then I would make another value in here, and I would say, okay, this one's not bananas, this is going to be age, and my age is 5,000. And whatever inventory stats you have, I don't know what they're going to be. How about card suit, like if you have a deck of cards, and 1, so that would be hearts, who knows. So I can have it like that. The problem with this is that it's kind of hard. You'd have to like eyeball making sure that your numbers are right to your keys, and making sure that that all makes sense. So instead of doing it like this, I'm going to make myself what's called a struct. Public struct item stat entry. And an item stat entry is going to be a single key, string stat key, and an int stat value. I'll get rid of that, my array of items. Just like with the inventory item, this is going to be a serializable field. And now I'll have a serialized field. Public, I want this to be capitalized, it's just a thing. Item stat entry. So now I have an instance of this struct called item entry. It's going to be an array of them. Item stat entries. I'm just going to name it that. And now when I go back to Unity, I can have a series of items that I forgot I need to add serialized field to each one of these. I go back. And now each one of these guys, now it's much easier to eyeball. I know that my first one is going to be card suit, and it's going to be 0, and value, it's going to be 1. So this would be a 1, 2. It's going to be a 2 of hearts. You could have something like that. So we have an item stat entry, and that item stat entry is going to be a key and a value. I kind of like this being, let's put this inside of Inventory Manager. Yeah, I like that. So now an Inventory Manager has a representation of its dictionary like that. Oh wait, no, I'm crazy. It's going to go inside of an inventory item. Do I like this? I'm thinking about it. Do I like that? Yeah, sure. I like that. So now, instead of it being just straight up item stat entry, I need to specify inventory item dot item stat entry. It's going to be an array of those, because I moved it to here, because it makes sense that an inventory item knows what an entry for itself should be. And I don't think I need this. I think instead I just need add item stat. Instead of just taking in a key and a value, I'll take in item stat entry in entry. I'm just calling it in entry, or I could call it entry. And that's passing along one of these. So I'll just call entry.stat key, entry.stat value. Am I crazy? I'm going to add public. It has to be public. Oopsies. That's better. Okay, so now I don't need to like manage stuff as crazily. I was thinking it might have been a little wacky before, but now every inventory item has a set of stats and values for each of those stats, and it can add it to itself with this method. The pickup behavior, when it wants to get picked up, I can say, and while I'm at it, why should I care? I'm just thinking out loud here. I could avoid using a dictionary altogether if I keep those stats, but I think I'm going to keep it. I'm gonna, sorry about this. we're doing this on the fly because, you know, I don't make inventory systems every day. We're doing this on the fly. We're doing it live. Instead of a dictionary, I'm going to just have another public list item stat entry. Item stats equals new. Boom. So that's going to be a serialized field as well. And instead of having a dictionary and like having the different value type, I'm just going to have my struct be here. And by struct, I mean this guy here. My item stat entry, it's just going to be a list of entries. I'm not going to have a bunch of different data types because we don't need them. It's fine. And let's see what happens. Now, this is different because it's not, it's no longer a dictionary. So it'll be item stats equals, and I need to make a new stat here. So item stat inventory item dot item stat entry, and I'll just give it a name, stat entry equals new, boom, stat entry dot stat key equals card suit, stat entry dot stat value equals 1. This is going to be a 1. So the heart, and I'll give it another one. That'll be fine. You could do this multiple times to make, this is just a test though. This is purely for testing. That item stat add stat entry. Boom. So now I create a new stat entry and then I add it instead of having a dictionary. It's the same thing, but now it's easier to edit on your object. So boom, item stats, and I'll have it say suit is 0, value is 10. So it's a 10 of spades. I don't know. Now when I press play, I could collect it if my pickup behavior has a collect behavior. Public void collect behavior. And it doesn't need to be public. I'm just going to make it void. So if it's the player, then collect behavior. Run that, because, hey, the player got me. He deserves it. Collect me. I'm going to do some stuff. And then I'm going to destroy myself. Game object with a lowercase g refers to my own game object, myself. When I touch it now, it should just blow up. Boom, it's gone. So now that we have an inventory manager that manages a list of inventory items. An inventory item is represented as some name, some texture, and then a series of stats. I apologize for starting out with a dictionary and then deviating into a struct, which is like a dictionary because it is a key and a value, but then we could have other values with it if we wanted. Over time, if you find you have other things you want to represent, such as count, maybe you have an amount of them, but I'll leave it like this for now. And then you have a pickup behavior, which is attached to items in the game, which when you touch them, they could be collected, and those pickup items know what inventory item they are because you've typed it out and defined it. So when I have do stuff here, I want to be able to find the inventory manager and then add myself to the inventory. Then destroy myself, my pickup object, because my thing has been collected in the inventory manager, and that should be that. So inventory manager, where is it? Oh, it's not in this scene. I think it belongs in the player. To me, it makes sense that the player should have the inventory manager. So I'm going to create empty inventory manager. Inventory manager. Inventory manager. Boom. He has a list of inventory items. He doesn't know what's in it yet. If I go over here and I hit spacebar, will it still say I added something? Boom. Sword of Damocles. I'll open up my player. I'll go to his inventory manager and look, he has a Sword of Damocles. I'm going to hit spacebar again. And now he should have 2. Nice. That's from before with the spacebar. Now I need to find the game manager. You could do this 2 ways. Like the game manager, you could turn it into a singleton with this instance thing. So you can just say inventory manager.instance.add this thing. Or I could just find it using a find method that lets me find anything in the game that matches what I want. I'm going to do it that way. I'm going to do it game object dot find object of type, not objects, but object. I only want to find one of them. Inventory manager. There it is. And I'm going to save this value by saying inventory manager IM. I'm just giving it a name equals that. Then if IM is not equal to null, so exclamation point equal with no space between it, that's an operator that says not equal to. So if I was able to find that object, then IM, which is my inventory manager, just a variable I named it in this method, dot add item, my item. I'm just copying that and pasting it here. So I add myself to him, and then I destroy. Else, debug.log pickup item couldn't find an inventory manager. Did you remember to add one to the scene? Question mark. And I'll add a semicolon at the end because that's how it works. And instead of log, I'll make it log warning. So if I somehow forgot to add an inventory manager to the scene, I would see a warning saying, hey, I couldn't find it. I'm going to destroy myself, but I couldn't find the inventory manager. So now when I press play and I click on my inventory manager, I see it has a list of 0 items. I click on my pickup item and I see that he's a cool ball and he has 2 values inside of his item stats. I'm going to walk over, collect it. Boom. I just collected it. I have added the cool ball to my inventory, and now I have 1 item. I'm going to click on Inventory Manager over here, and I should see cool ball, perfect. And he has a suit and he has a value. I don't know what values you would need to save for your game, but this is how you get there. So in this setup, I could imagine if you were to make a bunch of pickup objects, you would make them each have their own stats. Like, where's the guy? Select. You could have a folder of pickup items. And each one of them would be like this pickup item, but with different numbers here, different game object, all that type of stuff, different mesh if it looks different. and you just have a whole list of them in here. And then when you want something to collect, you would spawn it, and then you could collect it. So that is a very basic overview of an inventory system. Now, also this week, I'm going to record myself doing a spawning an object and then being able to interact with it. And maybe I'll do that with this inventory system. But since you should be able to watch them separately, I might just make it a generic object. But now I can make multiple ones of these pickup items. I'll put one on one side. I'll put one on the other side. Boom. So pickup item and pickup item 1. The other one is cool ball. This one's going to be less cool ball. And he's also going to have a third value. And it's going to be rarity of -1. He's not rare at all. I won't bother adding it to here. But okay, so now when I collect 1, I collected cool ball. I collected less cool ball. And if I go to my player in his inventory manager, I should see, lo and behold, I have cool ball, less cool ball. Cool ball only has 2 stats, and less cool ball has 3 stats. So everything I did works exactly how I wanted it to. I'm happy, you're happy, we all win. That is how you make an inventory management system, very high level, very basic in Unity.